with Miss O'Kaylee, and another chapter a night will help you sleep tight. We're reading A Fox Ate My Homework, where Jonah meets a fox that talks, and where him and his family are struggling to pay for their house, and so they're trying to figure out ways to get around that. We are on chapter 6, and it is titled Saturday Afternoon. As soon as we got home, I opened the back door to see if I could find the fox. He was nowhere to be found. Maybe he was by the chicken coop again. I'm going to check on the chickens, I told my mom. Not right now, she said, buttoning up a fancy dress shirt. Close the door and come here. I sighed and closed the door slowly, hoping to catch a glimpse of the fox. Nothing. Nada. Listen to me carefully, my mom said when I joined her in the living room. I need to go take some tests for this job. I may be gone for a few hours. I didn't have any problem with that. It would give me more time to find the fox. It could also be my only chance to use the outhouse. Do not leave this house for any reason, my mom stressed. I want you to stay right here and write your paper for school if you haven't done it yet. She nodded her head slowly like she wanted me to nod with her to show I understood. Okay, I murmured. It wasn't fair, and I couldn't tell her why, but I did need to write those paragraphs about my best friend. This would be the perfect time to do it. She put on some lipstick and headed for the front door. Call me if you need anything. Don't forget there's a pizza in the fridge. She hesitated after she opened the front door. I thought for sure she wasn't going to leave. Love you, Mom, I encouraged her. See you when you get back. She smiled and said she loved me too before closing the door. I waited until I heard the car pull away before I rushed out the back door. The chickens were roaming their fenced area. The coop was empty. I searched the entire yard. My heart sank when I knew for sure the fox wasn't there. I went back inside and grabbed another 2 sheets of paper from my backpack. I sat on the couch and placed the paper on the coffee table in front of it. I didn't know what had happened to the one from the night before, so I started over again with my best friend written across the top of the sheet. I couldn't go any further. I wasn't sure if I even had a best friend. A large car or truck skidded in the driveway in front of the house. A loud horn honked. I didn't move because I had no idea who it was. My heart stopped when someone banged on the front door. I tried not to move, hoping whoever it was didn't realize I was there. They banged on the door again. I shook every time their fist hit the door. Delivery for Jonah Johnson, a man's voice shouted from outside. Me? I had a delivery? Oh yeah, the candy. I jumped up and raced for the door. I was scared I was too late when I heard the delivery truck start to back up. I threw the door open and yelled, "Wait!" A big man wearing shorts jumped out of the truck. "Jonah Johnson?" I nodded my head. "Almost missed you, buddy." He walked over to me with a large box in his hands and a tablet shaped like a clipboard. He set the box on the ground by me. "Sign here." I was pointing to a spot on the tablet and he handed me a pen. I signed it, thanked him, grabbed my box of candy, and went back inside. I couldn't wipe the smile off my face because I was so excited about all the money I was about to make. I ripped the box open and pulled out 2 smaller boxes full of chocolate candy bars. I had to write my paper later because it was time to get down to business. I stepped out of the house with the boxes in both hands and closed the door. I didn't have a key, so I couldn't lock the door. I doubted it would be a problem since we lived in the country and there were only a handful of houses on this road. My mom said I couldn't leave the house, but I had to do it for both of us. She was going back to work to make some money, and now I had the chance to make some money too. She'd have to be proud of me for helping out. Together, we could get this house back. I walked out of the yard with my candy and headed down the dirt road. There were 2 more houses on the right side and 3 on the left. I'd stop at each one and sell as much candy as possible if it went well, and I sold all the candy. I'd do this every Saturday. No one was home at the first house. I was disappointed, but I refused to give up this early. Maybe they went to the farmer's market. I could check back later. No one was home at the second house either. Now I was getting worried. There were only 3 more houses on this street. I wasn't willing to go down any other streets because I didn't want to get lost. A young man opened the door at the 3rd house. He was wearing a motorcycle jacket and had earrings in both ears. There was a cigarette in his left hand. "Yeah?" he said. I gulped. I couldn't say anything. I had pictured this moment perfectly in my head. I was supposed to introduce myself and be friendly. That didn't happen. "Are you okay, kid?" the guy asked. I cleared my throat and held up one of the boxes. I could only say one word, and it was in a squeaky voice I didn't recognize as my own. "Candy?" The man sighed. "Oh man, I bought a box of chocolate the other day from another kid." Strike 3. This was the third house and I still hadn't sold any candy. I lowered the box and turned to walk away. I felt embarrassed for some reason. "Hold on, kid," the man said. He threw his cigarette down and stomped on it before blowing a puff of smoke out of his mouth. "How much?" I faced him and cleared my throat again. "$1 a bar?" He huffed. "Give me 5 of them." His voice was raspy, like he didn't want to do it. He reached for his wallet and pulled out a $5 bill. I handed him the 5 chocolate bars and accepted his money. "Thank you," he just said, "Yeah," and slammed the door. Okay, now I was getting somewhere. There were 2 more houses to go. Thank goodness I didn't give up earlier. Things were looking up. No one was home at the 4th house. I rubbed my forehead and panicked. The 2 boxes had 20 bars of chocolate each. 40 bars was in all. What was I thinking? I had 35 bars of chocolate left, and there was no way I could sell them all on one house. I still had to sell as many as I could. My mom would be home soon, and I'd have to explain all of this to her. I did not want to do that. I couldn't give up. I knocked on the 6th door. No one answered. It was all over. It was all over. I was going to be in so much trouble. "Hello," said an old man's voice before I turned away. I didn't believe it. I don't believe it. You're the kid who stole Rita's eggs." He waited a second, laughed, and then turned to someone behind him. "Martha, come here. It's Rita's great-grandson." Mrs. Hunter was by his side within seconds. She smiled. "Oh, dear child, come in, come in." I wasn't supposed to go into strangers' homes, but I had met these people with my mom just a couple hours earlier. Not that it mattered. I had to get home before my mom did. "I can't stay," I told them. Mr. Hunter narrowed his eyes. "What brings you here, Joe?" I was surprised he remembered my name and said it right. "I'm selling some candy and wanted to see if you wanted any." Mr. Hunter shook his head. "I love chocolate, but my doctor won't let me touch it." And there it was. Did you hear it? It was the sound of my complete failure. I did everything I could to keep from crying. "Thanks anyway," I told him. My mom was going to kill me. "Wait a second, child," Mrs. Hunter said. "Why are you selling the chocolate?" I hesitated. "I want to help my mom." Mrs. Hunter made a sound from her throat that sounded like, "Aw." "You're a good boy." She turned to her husband. "It's up to you," she said to him. "Rita was my best friend." She walked away and left Mr. Hunter in the doorway facing me. "Come to think of it," Mr. Hunter said, "I never liked my doctor much." He pointed to the boxes in my hands. "How much is the chocolate?" $1 each, I told him. He was only going to buy one, so it didn't matter. I wished he'd hurry up, though. My mom could already be home. She'd call the cops because the door was unlocked and I wasn't there. "How many do you have left?" he asked. He needed to stop wasting time and just ask for a bar. 35. He whistled. "That's a lot." No kidding. I needed him to tell me how many he wanted or I'd have to leave and race home. He said the one thing I had never expected. "I'll take them all." He pulled out his wallet and handed me $35. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't move. Never in a million years did I think someone would buy all my chocolate. I certainly didn't think Mr. Hunter would be the one to buy most of them. "So now you've got my money," Mr. Hunter said, rubbing his chin. I knew he was going to ask me to do something for him, like wash his car or lick his boots. I won't lie, I was willing to do it. He had saved me from certain death. "Are you going to give me my candy?" he asked. I looked at the 2 boxes in my hand and realized in my excitement I forgot to give them to him. I shoved them in front of me. "I'm sorry, here you go." He grabbed them and said, "These are mine now, right? I can do with them what I want?" That was a silly question. Of course, he could do whatever he wanted with them. For all I cared, he could throw them in the trash. "Yes, sir, they're yours." He smiled. "I'd like to welcome you and your mom to the neighborhood with these 2 boxes of chocolate." He handed them right back to me. I wasn't sure what to do. I already had his money. Now I had the candy back too. I stared at him, confused. "Please take them," Mr. Hunter pleaded. "I'll never hear the end of it from my wife if you don't. There's not enough aspirin in the world for that." He smirked. "Trust me, you're doing me a favor." "Thank you," was all I could say to him. He wasn't a bad guy. I was liking the neighborhood more and more and wished we didn't have to leave. I hope they figure out a way to stay, and I hope you sleep great.